नन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगण रघुनाथान्वितां तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी विष्णु भानु सुत देवे प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we were discussing the 17th chapter, and last time Mataji completed the 15th verse of the 17th chapter, and today we are going to start with the 16th verse. So I'm going to share my screen. So we are discussing the austerities. So we discussed the austerity. So far we have discussed the austerity of the body, austerity of the speech, and now we are going to discuss the austerity of the mind. So mind, body, and words, as we say. So these three are how to regulate them. That is the whole idea here. So let me share my screen. Are you all able to see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see.
All right. So let's recite this verse. You can repeat after me. Manah prasadaha saumyatvam
Manah
मनः
prasadah
प्रसादः
samyatvam
सौम्यत्वं
maunam atma vinigraha
मौनम्
maunam
आत्मनिग्रहः
atmavinigraha
bhava samshuddhiriti etat
bhavasambhutirietat
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत्
tapo manasamuchyate.
तपो
tapo
मानसमुच्यते।
manasam
मानसमुच्यते
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
मनः
Manah
मनः
प्रसादः
prasada
प्रसादः
सौम्यत्वम्
samhitam
सौम्यत्वं
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रहः
मौनम्
maunam
मौनम्
आत्मनिग्रहः
atmavinigraha
आत्मविनिग्रहः
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत्
तपो मानसमुच्यते।
तपो
tapo manasam
मानसमुच्यते।
uchyate
मानसमुच्यते
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
मनः
manah
मनः
प्रसादः
prasada
प्रसादः
सौम्यत्वम्
samhritam
सौम्यत्वं
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रहः
मौनम्
maunam
मौनम्
आत्मनिग्रहः
atmavinigraha
आत्मविनिग्रहः
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
bhavasambhutirietat
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत्
तपो मानसमुच्यते।
तपो
tapo manasam
मानसमुच्यते।
मानसमुच्यते
uchyate
Would like to recite?
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वं
मनः
मनः
प्रसादः
प्रसाद
सौम्यत्वम्
संयतं
मौनमात्मा विनिग्रहः
मौनम्
मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः
आत्मविनिग्रहः
मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत्
एतत्
तपो मानसः मुच्यते
तपो
तपो मनसम्
मानसमुच्यते।
उच्यते।
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
मनः
मनः
प्रसादः
प्रसाद
सौम्यत्वम्
संयुक्तम्
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रहः
मौनम्
मौनम्
आत्मविनिग्रहः
आत्मविनिग्रहः
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
इति
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत्
एतत्
तपो मानसमुच्यते।
तपोमानसमुच्यते
मनः प्रसाद समत्वम्
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
सौम्यत्वम्
मौनम् आत्मा विनिग्रह
मौनम् आत्मनिग्रहः
भव संशुद्धिर् इति एतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
एतत्
तपो मनसम् उच्यते
तपोमानसमुच्यते
समुच्यते
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वं
मनः
मौनम्
प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रह
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रहः
भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतपो
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
तपो मानसमुच्यते
तपोमानसमुच्यते
मनः प्रसाद संभित्तम्
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
मौनम् आत्मा विनिग्रह
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रहः
भाव संशुद्धिरिति एतत्
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
तपो मनसम् उच्यते
तपोमानसमुच्यते
मनः प्रसाद सौम्यत्वं
मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वम्
संभित्तम्
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रह
मौनम् आत्मविनिग्रहः
भाव संसिद्धिर् एत
भावसंशुद्धिरिति एतत्
तपो मनसानाम् उच्यते
तपोमानसमुच्यते Let's recite the synonyms. Manah prasadah,
मनः प्रसादः
satisfaction of the mind.
satisfaction of the mind
Saumyatvam,
Saumyatvam,
being without duplicity towards others.
being without
duplicity
towards others.
Maunam,
Maunam,
gravity.
gravity
Atma,
Atma,
of the self.
of
the self,
Vinigraha,
Vinigraha,
control.
control
Bhava,
Bhava,
of one's nature.
of one's nature,
Samshuddhi,
Samshuddhi,
purification.
purification,
Iti,
iti,
thus.
thus,
Etat,
etat,
this.
this,
Tapaha,
tapah,
austerity.
austerity,
Manasam,
manasam,
of the mind.
of the mind,
mind,
Uchyate,
uchyate,
is said to be.
is said
is
to be.
said to be.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Purport: to make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. I'll just highlight this because this is a very important statement. We'll come back to this. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. And so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata. One can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization. The person in Krishna consciousness observes perfect silence in this sense. Control of the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. One should be straightforward in his dealings and thereby purify his existence. All these qualities together constitute austerity in mental activities. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे. I'll read the translation one more time. And satisfaction, simplicity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. Hare Krishna. So, this is the 16th verse, as we said. So it says, Manaha prasadaha saumyatvam. Manaha prasad. Manaha prasad means satisfaction of the mind. Now we can say that satisfaction is actually like an emotion. You know, sometimes we feel satisfied, sometimes we feel not satisfied. You know, sometimes satisfaction could be of different things. Satisfaction of food, satisfaction of different other things that we have in our life. You know, the home that we have, the car we have, the phones we use. Now, but if we analyze this satisfaction, more in detail, we will see that actually satisfaction is not just an emotion, it is also a decision that we make. You know, we have to make a decision to be satisfied. So how does it work actually? So we all know that actually there are certain things, and if we think about those things, you know, we will naturally become dissatisfied. You know, it just triggers us. You know, for example, say I'm just giving an example. In my case, you know, I sometimes get attracted to phones, you know, the new phones that come out. So now, even though I may have a good phone and it is completely serving my purpose to the fullest, but if I go and start seeing some advertisements about the new phones that are coming out, and it may have a lot of different features, you know, and actually those features, even if I buy that phone, I will never use those features at all. But just by looking at those, you know, it basically makes me crave for that phone. You know, it makes me dissatisfied with my existing phone, because, you know, it just, you know, if you compare the two, this phone looks really nice, you know, and even though I may not be using all these features, it will still, you know, it will make me feel dissatisfied. So the best thing for me is to not watch those advertisements. So now this may apply to other things also. So now, why will I be dissatisfied? Because, you know, I mean, obviously, if you are going to buy like a high-end phone, you'll have to pay a price. Now, sometimes I may be able to afford that kind of, phone. Sometimes I may not be able to afford that kind of phone. So this applies to home. This applies to all the different things that we have in our life, you know. So actually, in this context, Prabhupada makes a very important statement here, and which I had highlighted when we were reading the purport. Prabhupada says, satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. So there is a direct verse in this context in the Bhagavad Gita itself. Most of us would know this is this verse is actually I think it's 2.62, which says Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsaha. You know, it's the whole series is given there, and so there are two verses, 62 and 63 in the second chapter, and basically it ends in Buddhi Nashat Pranishyati. So basically, Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsaha is while contemplating the sense objects. You know. So sangaste supajayate, sangat sanjayate, kamaha kamat krodha abhijayate. And then the series continues in the next verse where it says, Krodha bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhramaha, smriti brahmasad buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat pranishyati. So ultimately it ends in, you know, the person will perish. Pranishyati means perish. So it starts from contemplating on the sense objects. So very important statement Prabhupada makes, that, you know, to make, he says that satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think of sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. And so there is no possibility of the minds becoming satisfied. Now, actually, this statement is also interesting. Prabhupada says that, you know, in the present age, you know, in the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. So actually, now we can, at least it works in my case, I have, we read in the scriptures that we can either serve Krishna or we can serve Maya. We only have these. So when we say free will, so free will is actually only, we have only limited free will. It's not that we have an absolute free will, we can do anything and everything. The only free will that we have is to make the choice. We have the choice to either serve Krishna or we have the choice to serve Maya. Now, as long as we are serving Krishna in one way or the other, you can read scriptures, you can actually chant, sit and chant, you can actually do some writing service for Krishna, you can cook for Krishna or whatever, as long as we are doing Krishna's service, we are away from Maya. But I have seen in this my case, it really works, 100% of times, that as soon as I take my mind away from Krishna's service, my mind will automatically be dragged to some kind of sense and enjoyment. Either I will feel like watching something which doesn't make sense. I would like to read something which doesn't make any sense, news for example, hearing the news, or I may feel that let me call my friend, haven't spoken to him for a while, so all these kind of things, the mind will automatically drag to these kind of things. And actually Arjuna also kinds of acknowledges this in the Bhagavad Gita in the 3rd chapter, I believe the 36th verse. He says, Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushah anitcham api varshnaya balad iva niyojita. He says balad iva niyojita. What is it that one is compelled to act sinfully, even unwillingly. I don't want to do it, but I'm compelled to do it actually. So this is more a graphic representation of that. It's but we may not be acting sinfully, but basically, so there are 3 things actually. One is we can do like pro Krishna conscious activities. Second is we do like neutral activities, which are not anti Krishna conscious activity, but it is not pro Krishna conscious also. And the 3rd level is we do anti Krishna conscious activity. So anti Krishna conscious activity is basically breaking the 4 regulative principles. So now we may say that, okay, when we are not in Krishna consciousness, when we are not thinking about Krishna, when we are not acting for Krishna, we are not doing anything sinful, but again, we are in one way or the other, we are, serving Maya in one way or the other. So actually, Prabhupada says that actually the mind is, by nature, it is dissatisfied. So now, even if the mind becomes, say, satisfied, we can, for some way, we gain control over mind, okay, I'll come to this point later. There is a very nice explanation that is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 5th canto 6th chapter, where there is a description about Rishabdev. So we'll come to that. And this conversation is between obviously Parikshit Maharaja and Sukhdev Goswami. So let's move forward in this verse. So then it says simplicity, gravity, and self-control. So actually, if we see here, simplicity is a word that comes both in 17.16 and 17.14. So simplicity in the 17.14 is used as the austerity of the body. And here in the 17.16, it is used in austerity of the mind. So what is the difference between the two? Actually, simplicity is the opposite of duplicity. Duplicity means, I say something else, but I do something else. That is duplicity. In front of everybody, I may try to show that, I'm a very austere person. I do so many austerities, but in private, I'm indulging in some kind of sense gratification. So actually, when the same word simplicity used by Srila Prabhupada in terms of the austerity of body, Arjavam is the word that is used. Arjavam is the same root from which the word Arjun comes. So Arjun is, so the Acharyas explain that one of the meaning of Arjun is straightforward. Straightforward in the sense, whatever is there inside me is outside also. I don't hide anything. Some we see there are certain devotees, if they, not devotees or trying to be devotees. So if they are, lacking in some way, they would try to hide it. If I tell this to the devotees, what would the devotees think about me? Such a bad person I am. And there are other devotees who would just whatever, they would go to other devotees and they will, from their own, they will say, I'm not able to do this, I'm not able to control this. Can you please help me? Can you suggest something? What should I do? So that actually is, that is simplicity. So when it is used in 17.14, it is more in the sense of what we do actually. We may be doing something in the in public. We might be able to make a show of something, this is how great I am. But in private, I'm doing completely the opposite of that thing. So that is like used in terms of that is the meaning of the simplicity. Simplicity is I'm not doing that actually. Whatever I'm doing in private, that is what I'm also doing in public. So that is the way it is used in the verse 17.14, where it is said it is the austerity of the body. Now when it applies to austerity of the mind, that basically is what we think in the mind. We may say so many things, that I am like this, I am like that, but inside my mind I have something completely different going on. Basically I don't reveal my thoughts in public to everyone. So I'm like a duplicit person. I'll say something else, I try to act in such a certain way, but inside my mind I have something completely different. Sometimes people have that revenge fantasies going on inside their mind, that this person did this to me, now I'll do like this, I do like that. So those kind of revenge fantasies are going on inside the mind. So that is like duplicities. We may say that, okay, no, I am a very forgiving person, I forgive people, but inside our mind we are burning, our mind is shouting. So the next it comes is maunam. Now maunam, it is interesting. Maunam also means a person who silence. Maunam is silence actually. So obviously it also means gravity, but I'll quote another verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Srila Prabhupada translates maunam as silence. Now gravity also means silent in a way. We'll discuss that in a minute. But maunam, it is interesting that Krishna says it is an austerity of the mind. He is not saying maunam is a austerity of speech. Many times people take maun vrat. So maun vrat is basically they take a vow that they will not speak for so many days, or at least a day or so many hours. I have tried this. I have in the past, I've taken a vow that I will at least every morning not now, some years later, I'd taken a vow that at least when I wake up in the morning, I'll not speak anything for the first 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever. So again, it's not something that we should be doing. We should be speaking about Krishna whenever possible. Should be chanting our rounds properly, pronounce it and speak. So this is before I became a devotee. So I'm just saying that Mauna Vrat is something that is very popular in the Vedic tradition. Many people take that vrat, especially it's very popular in the Mayavadi sampradayas. So now mauna is an austerity of the mind. What it means is actually, when a person is speaking too much, that means the mind is very agitated, So that is why mauna is considered to be a austerity of the mind. If a person, I might be silent, I might not speak anything, but my mind is screaming from inside. So then it is, so it is not natural for me. So I will obviously want to speak up because I cannot tolerate that. My mind is this, burning from inside. I want to speak. So that is why monam is considered to be it's a austerity of mind. And atma, of the self, vinigraha, control. So atma vinigraha, self control, again, this is used more in terms of controlling the senses. So now there are two things. One is, if our mind is controlled completely, the thought of sense gratification itself will not come to our mind, but obviously we are, at least I am not at that level, so the thoughts for sense gratification may come, but when I say self-control, I take a vow that I will not act on those thoughts, So some people, as soon as the thought comes, they start identifying with that thought, okay, this thought has come, and then let me act on that. So, self-control means that we analyze our thoughts, which thoughts are conducive for us to grow spiritually and which thoughts are not conducive for us to grow spiritually. So the first level for us is to actually not act on the thoughts which are not conducive for our spiritual progress. So that is what is meant by self-control. So when we take the vows of the four, and I'll not break those 4 regulative principles, that basically is part of the self-control. So the thoughts to break the the thought to break the 4 regulative principles may still come to our mind, but we take a vow that I will not act on those on those kind of thoughts at all. Now, when we basically, it is like starving. When we take a vow and we actually work on it, and we make sure that we not act on those thoughts, then ultimately what happens is that craving dies down. It's like starve. We basically starve that thought out so that it will die within us. So some of us might have had those kind of, when we had first taken initiation or taken the vow, some of us might be attracted to some specific kind of food, some specific kind of drink, but eventually what happened is, after practicing it for so many years, now we might not even get that kind of thought. And in fact, some things that we used to love earlier, the same things would repel us. So for example, now it has been so many years that I have stopped eating onion and garlic. Now, when I go to my parents' house, they eat onion and garlic, and I cannot tolerate that smell. When they cook onion and garlic food, it's like very pungent smell. It feels like, I just feel like going out of the house. No, I don't say anything to them, but basically that is how it is. We just can't tolerate. It repels us. So what happens is, with our the power of self-control, we can actually give away those thoughts completely, and it comes to a certain extent that we kind of get automatically, we get repelled by that. So, and then basically samshuddhi, purification. So that results in purification. The purification, as we know in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a full description about, purify ourselves. So people who have committed some sinful activities in the past. So we know that there are 2-3 different solutions that Sukdev Goswami first tells to Parikshit Maharaj. But Parikshit Maharaj, kinds of counters all of those. He says that, you may do this, and you may get temporarily purified, but the mind is still there. Mind, as long as the thoughts of those sinful activities are there in our mind, the person will compulsively drag to again do the same activities. So this is not going to work. So ultimately, then the ultimate solution that is given by Sukdev Goswami is bhakti. He says that the bhakti is the only method by which we can become really purified. In essence, we can absolutely become purified. So actually, and that is also the conclusive method that is given by Krishna, and it also starts by our mind, where Krishna says, "Man mana bhav mad bhakto." Man mana, always think of me. So really, the only way to control the mind is to actually always think about Krishna. The moment we stop thinking about Krishna, the mind will automatically be dragged to some kind of worldly things, some kind of sense enjoyment, thoughts of sense enjoyments. There was a very nice lecture that was given by Radhanath Maharaj. That was long time back. I still remember that. So there he was speaking about mauna, so he says that actually when we are silent, when we are mauna, so he was speaking to some children, and I forgot what was the context over there. So they had a period where, like, some time, at least 20 minutes or 30 minutes, where they have to be silent. They are not allowed to speak anything, just be silent. So it's an interesting thing to keep children silent. It's very difficult. Their minds are so agitated, not in a negative sense, but their minds are very agitated, and they continuously want to chatter, speak things. So especially when they're together. If the children are alone, then they may not be willing to speak to elders so much. But so he was speaking to the children. So he says that actually when we are silent, then it's very good for us. He says that we actually take the mind away from the superficial things of the world, and then we contemplate on the substance of our life. What is really important for us? What is the substance in our life? And then he says, and that is how we control our mind. And the best way to control of the mind is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So it's a very big lecture. He speaks very nicely. I don't have the link now. I've heard it a long time back. But if someone has it, you can hear it. If someone knows which lecture I'm talking about. But so ultimately, the Bhagavad Gita also kinds of ends in always engaging the mind in always thinking about Krishna. Actually, where in the verse 7.1, where the Bhakti section of the Bhagavad Gita starts, the first thing that comes the first word that Krishna speaks there is, what is that? Make your mind attached to me, Mayi asakta manah. He says, Mayi asakta manah partha yogam yunjan madashraya samshayam samagramam yathagyasya tadshru. So Mayi asakta manah, make your mind attached to me. So how do we make our mind attached to Krishna? Is basically we speak about Krishna, or we hear about Krishna, or we basically in some way think about Krishna. And I was talking about Srimad Bhagavatam. So one thing is, even if, say for example, our mind becomes completely controlled, we have mastered the mind. So is it that we should let our mind, we can completely trust our mind? So no, actually there is a very intriguing discussion that happens between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukdev Goswami. I'm just going to read the translation. This is the translation for the first 5 verses of the 5th canto, 6th chapter. Text 1, King Parikshit asked Shukdev Goswami, my dear Lord, for those who are completely pure in heart, knowledge is attained by the practice of Bhakti Yoga. And attachment for fruitive activity is completely burned to ashes. For such people, the powers of mystic yoga automatically arise. They do not cause distress. Why then did Rishabdev neglect them? Srila Shukdev Goswami replied, my dear king, you have spoken correctly. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action. So here Shukdev Goswami is vigilant about the mind's action. Text 3, all the learned scholars, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you, Prabhu. There was a pause for a few seconds.
Yeah, I got a message that your internet connection is unstable, so that's why I just paused. Okay.
Yeah.
So you heard the second verse that I read out, right?
Yes, we only lost for like 2-3 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So text 3, all the learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with it. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini form of Lord Krishna, and Saubhari Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection. So here is giving examples of elevated personalities as Lord Shiva, who could be more elevated in the material world more than Lord Shiva, and even Savari Muni, it's giving an example of very okay. Moving on to the next verse. Text 4, an unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramours, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi. Prabhupada gives a very interesting purport on this verse. We'll read that, but I'll first read the next verse. This is the last verse which we are going to read. This is text 5. The mind is the root cause of lust, anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. Combined, these constitute bondage to fruitive activity. What learned man would put faith in the mind? So it's very instructive for us. So in the scriptures, we know there are 2 kinds of statements. One is descriptive. It just describes, okay, this is how things happen. This is what this person said. This is what this person said. So one is descriptive and one is prescriptive. Prescriptive is basically instructive. These are instructions for us to follow. So these verses that I just mentioned, these are like instructive, they are prescriptive. They are like prescription that don't trust your mind, even if you have controlled your mind completely. So I'll read the text 4 again and the purport given by Srila Prabhupada. So I'll just read the translation. An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramours, and it sometimes happens that her husband is violently killed by her paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, this mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, and greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi. Purport. In this verse, the word pumschali refers to a woman who is easily carried away by men. Such a woman is never to be trusted. Unfortunately, in the present age, women are never controlled. According to the directions of the Shastras, women are never to be given freedom. When a child, a woman must be strictly controlled by her father. When she is young, she must be strictly controlled by her husband. And when she is old, she must be controlled by her elderly sons. If she is given independence and allowed to mingle unrestrictedly with men, she will be spoiled. A spoiled woman being manipulated by paramours might even kill her husband. This example is given here because a yogi desiring to get free from material conditions must always keep his mind under control. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that in the morning our first business should be to beat the mind with shoes 100 times. And before going to bed, to beat the mind 100 times with a broomstick. In this way, one's mind can be kept under control. An uncontrolled mind and an unchaste wife are the same. An unchaste wife can kill her husband at any time, and an uncontrolled mind followed by lust, anger, greed, madness, envy, and illusion can certainly kill the yogi. When the yogi is controlled by the mind, he falls down into the material condition. One should be very careful of the mind, just as a husband should be careful of an unchaste wife. So this is what Srila Prabhupada says. So very instructive. I just thought I'll share this with everyone. And then I also wanted to quickly mention about the qualities of a devotee that are mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I was mentioning that Srila Prabhupada actually translates Mauna as silence and Mauna as Gambhir. Mauna as grave. So this is actually from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, and this is chapter 22 and verses 78 to 80. So in these verses, there are 26 qualities of a devotee that is given. So as we know that, Chaitanya Charitamrita is like bhakti in action, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself demonstrates how bhakti is to be performed. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in these verses, there are these 26 qualities of the devotees that are mentioned. Many devotees would already be aware of this. I just still quickly mention these 26 qualities. Kripalu, merciful. Akrat droha, not defiant, humble. Satyasar, thoroughly truthful. Sama, equal to all. Nidosha, faultless. Vadanya, magnanimous. Mridu, mild. Suchi, clean. Akinchana, without material possessions. Sarv Upkarak, working for the welfare of everyone. Shanta, peaceful. Krishna Ek Sharan, exclusively surrendered to Krishna. Akama, desireless. Aniha, indifferent to material acquisitions. Sthira, fixed in devotional service. Vijita Sadguna, completely controlling the 6 bad qualities, lust, anger, greed, etc. Mitabhuk, eating only as much as required. Apramatta, without inebriation. Manada, respectful. Amani, without false prestige. Gambhira, grave. Karuna, compassionate. Maitra, friend. Kavi, poetic. Daksha, expert. And the last quality is Mauni, silent. So actually both gravity and silence comes in these 26 qualities also. So these are actually also the qualities of the devotees. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Mauna is mentioned more in terms of the quality or austerities of the mind, and it is basically in the mode of goodness. But even these qualities are favorable for bhakti also. That is the conclusion actually. So I just take a pause and see if there are any questions or comments or any connections about what I have mentioned today. Okay, there are no questions. We can move on to the next verse.
I do have a comment.
Yes, Prabhuji, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of research you did, wonderful citations from different sources. One thing I was thinking about Arjavam and Saumyatvam. I mean, in English, they may seem synonymous, but if you look at the Sanskrit,
Very different. That's true.
Saumyatvam is more like being gentle.
Gentle.
That's why we see it comes out in the purport and word for word also a little bit without being duplicity towards other. It's more, like I think you did mention in the mind not trying to take revenge and things like that. So it's that sort of thing, you're harsh, not gentle.
Right, gentle.
As opposed to arjavam, sometimes it's more like you're purposefully manipulating. You may not be harsh. You can be seemingly talking in a pleasing way, but and trying to manipulate others.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting point actually, Prabhuji. Good that you made that comment. So when these austerities are mentioned, so basically the austerities are in the terms of body, mind, and words. That is the austerity that is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita in these 3 verses. So this is 14, 15, and 16. So basically, it basically talks about how to regulate the different things that can drag a person away from, from the path of Krishna consciousness or spiritual path. So when simplicity is used in the 14th verse, where you said Arjavam, it is, what is the translation you said, Prabhu, for Arjavam?
It's technically it means, I think you also mentioned in the name of Arjuna, it's being honest, being direct,
Straightforward.
right?
Yeah.
So we
Right.
tend to cover up the truth
Correct.
and do things in a certain way. So in this context of bodily arjavam could mean we avoid what we're supposed to do, and we want to do things that we should not do, even though we know it's our duty. Hey, I have to get up in the morning and do these things, but we don't. But we pretend like we're doing. You touch based on it a little bit. We hide, ourselves. We put a picture of ourselves which is not the true. And specifically when it comes to the body, it could be, hey, are you getting up for Mangalarti? When Guru Maharaj asks, we may say yes, right? But we may be avoiding because it's our duty, but bodily inconvenience, avoiding, but trying to express that we are doing it. So it's a bodily austerity, being truthful to our duty, what we're supposed to do, right? So when it's applied for the duties that we are supposed to do and not do, this comes under arjavam for the body. But in another sense, brahmana's quality is also arjavam, right? So
Right.
there it's more like being honest, being straightforward, and not to
right.
not to manipulate things for our advantage.
Yeah, where like they sound very synonymous, but again, it applies more in the 14, it applies more in terms of an austerity of the body, how to. So basically, for example, in the 14th verse, we have the word non-violence, ahimsa. So ahimsa is basically not physically harming anyone, that is non-violence. So we may be agitated by anger. So how do we, so basically two of the things that, two of the doors of hell that are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita is lust and anger. So here, if you see in the 14th words, it says celibacy and non-violence. So celibacy basically regulates lust and non-violence regulates anger. Now we may regulate the anger at a physical level. We may say, okay, we will be saumya, as we say. So the opposite of saumya is harshness. So harshness can lead to anger and anger can lead to violence. So basically we will say we will be non-violence at the level of body. We will not harm anyone physically. But in the next verse, the anger again is basically regulated through speech. In the 15th verse, where austerity of speech, Krishna says, consist in speaking words that are truthful and pleasing. Pleasing means, we don't speak in a way that it agitates others. So when we are angry, at someone, we may speak certain harsh words to the person, which may actually, uh, displease others, it may agitate others. So we regulate anger at the level of speech. And then again, in the 16th verse, if we see the same thing, simplicity and non-duplicity, basically. In the word-to-word translation, I think Prabhupada uses non-duplicity, which basically means simplicity only. So the opposite of simplicity is duplicity. So basically, whatever is there in our mind, we kind of regulate that in our mind. Even at the level of mind, we don't become agitated, we don't become angry. So all those things are, again, self-control is mentioned, purification is mentioned, and that's why they are kind of used more in terms of the austerities of mind here in the 16th verse. But the point that you made is very true, Prabhu, very correct and very interesting. Thank you. Anything else that you would like to add, Prabhu?
No, this is good. I mean, this is a big research topic, right? I mean, this is dealing with the psychology, the modern psychology. They are still at the level of chemicals. You take drugs and subdue yourself and stuff. But these topics are really very deep. The Western psychology, I think it's Carl Jung, who says, the Western psychological systems are in diapers compared to what East has to offer. These things that are in this chapter, they're incredible, unbelievable, very deep topics.
Right.
Each of the item is a matter of a thesis for a PhD. Yeah.
Very interesting, bro. The word that you mentioned about the Western psychology. So in the Western psychology, we see that, some people are, especially if you go to professional companies, or, or if you go to some, say, people who are into, what is that, customer relationship management and those kind of, they will be they will talk in a very pleasing way. They will act in a very pleasing way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, as a person, that is how they are. They're acting in a certain way because they want to extract something from you. They want to get your business. So basically, it's opposite of simplicity. They are duplicitous. They may say very pleasingly, "Oh, you are such a nice person," and this, that, customer is God. But ultimately, the whole idea is to suck your blood, get the last penny out of your pocket. So
the problem is, it starts with what do you want, and we'll help you how to get what you want, regardless of what it is. But our process is, you purify the want. It will teach what should you want, and then explain, how to be situated in that state. Yeah.
In fact, marketing is making you want something you don't need.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also was going to comment on the Maunam part, Ganapati Govind. Maunam doesn't mean Maunam all the time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you have to speak when you need to speak.
Yeah, actually, in the purport to, I believe, the same verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there, maunam, when we say silence, so it doesn't mean that we have to be silent all the time. So we have to speak constructive things, constructive words. And basically, what Srila Prabhupada says in essence is that we have to speak about Krishna. It's better to speak about Krishna rather than,
Right.
otherwise, if you
rather
can't
than
do
be
that,
silent.
then be silent. Otherwise, what do we say it? What is the word that we use for gossiping? What is it?
Prajalpa.
Prajalpa, yeah, Prajalpa. So, but when I first came to Krishna consciousness, I couldn't understand what is this Prajalpa. All the devotees are saying, "Don't do Prajalpa, don't do Prajalpa." So I couldn't understand. Then in a lecture, I heard what is Prajalpa. I asked this question: what exactly is Prajalpa? Then kind of it made sense to me.
Many of the Mayavadis and these meditative processes value silence, but we don't value silence
Exactly.
in that
Yeah.
sense,
Right. Yeah, we have to speak about Krishna, basically
Right.
preach about Krishna. Unless we speak about Krishna, how would people know about Krishna?
I mean, Maunam is better than noise or Prajalpa, but Kirtanam is higher than Maunam.
Right, very true, Mataji.
Prabhuji, based on like what we are discussing just now, you said, I know to attract customer, they say you are very simplicity and all they say, and they try to suck your blood. But what is the best way of testing any kind of a quality for yourself, like whether you are you have a simplicity, self-control, because this is not something you can decide your own. It's very difficult, I can say, and the person in front of you is the right person to say that is also very is kind of a questionable in which context he's trying to say that. And third thing I see, some people has done this practice. For example, I take the Gandhi. He has been tested his celibacy and self-control, which I did not like personally, like how he was testing his self-control in that way. So how you can say that you are in the right path and you are getting self-control, you are getting simple and satisfied in terms of getting this kind of a virtue or a quality?
So, okay, now it's very difficult to tell you how to test ourselves. Best thing is to not to test in a way that, that we go into some agitating circumstances on our own and, we become trapped by it. That is not the good idea, because there is an example that is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where a prostitute approaches Haridas Thakur. So now if you look at that pastime, and Haridas Thakur was completely self-controlled to an extent that he transformed that prostitute, and that prostitute becomes a devotee, but it was not that Haridas Thakur himself went to that prostitute, so this is one of the example that is given by acharyas, that we should not become we should be always afraid of such these things, these kind of circumstances. As much as possible, we should try to avoid it. We should not try to test that, okay, let me see if I have become sense controlled, let me go to a, for example, devotees are said not to indulge in, say, drinking alcohol. And in the past, if the devotee had been drinking alcohol, and now after certain years, he may think that, okay, let me test myself, and I'll go to a bar and I'll see how sense controlled I am. So that is not a good idea. So look, I would say don't go to, don't try to test yourself by going into trying circumstances. But Prabhupada also says that by becoming devotee, by chanting Hare Krishna, we automatically develop all the good qualities. So the whole idea is basically we try to take senses away from these kind of things by giving a positive engagement to the senses. So again, when we give positive engagement to the senses, that doesn't mean that we should keep going and keep testing our senses, that, okay, let me see if I have controlled my senses now, because it's very difficult. You never know in what circumstances you will fall down, and then it might go to an extent that you will never be able to come back again. And that has happened to many devotees. That is just what my suggestion is, and my experience has been. But if any other devotee would like to add to it, please go ahead and add to it.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So as you were mentioning about testing, actually the test we can see by ourselves, because when the example is given when we eat our food, so there is maybe somebody 2 chapati, some 3, some 4, like that. So they themselves feel satisfied when they eat that. So similarly for the devotional service, when we are progressing, we ourselves can feel that difference in our behavior. So it is not something somebody will come from the outside and tell, but we can also feel that spiritual advancement as we get the satisfaction by doing the devotional service.
So I think the question is more in terms of how do we know if we have become sense controlled. So for example, say how do I become that I have controlled anger now?
Actually how can we know that is because then you're not doing that activity. So let's say devotees usually they should not go out for the movie. They don't have interest because they will be thinking, as Krishna says, right, whatever is night for the introspective says, that is a day, and whatever is the day for the materialistic, that is a night for the introspective says. So that means is whatever they find their definition of getting a happiness changed. So let's say if someone become a devotee, so if Sunday will be there, so instead of going to the movie, because a lot of the people before becoming a devotee, they go to watch the movies, they think that it is Sunday, let's go the mall and they watch the movie, like that. So these tendency will decrease, because if we sincerely become a devotee, we will see that, okay, on Sunday I don't want to go to movie, I want to go to the temple. And if there is a fasting days on Ekadashi, earlier we never used to take fast, right? But becoming a devotee, we take the fast. So these things, as much as we progress, we will see that we are becoming a self-controlled. Means you are not moving, watching a movie, that initially will be a little difficult, but as you find your happiness in devotional service, you will not hanker for that. So initially we have to put a barrier, but later on it becomes like it's obvious, Prabhu. I mean, sir, you are becoming a little bit, you will feel when you progress. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. But yeah, I like Ganapati Govind also, Prabhuji, a comment also, like, instead of testing it, if you might harm yourself. So that's another way of also controlling it. Just try to control and be be a devotee and spend more time with the Krishna consciousness instead of testing your qualities. It's not required, because you might land up, because that's why I was giving example of Mahatma Gandhi, because I never liked what he wrote in his book also, and
I know what you're talking about. So.
Yeah, so like, why you have to test in that way something that you are so self-controlled or something? So this is not something you should do it. For food, I understand, but for other things, like Prabhuji said, going in the bar and sitting there and trying to control, if you have a bad habit of drinking in the past, you might land up, your old friend will land up, oh, come on, just one drink, it won't harm you. And you'll start with one, and again, you'll be in the same path. So it's true, yeah, we should not test something. If you are in the right path, just keep going there, or take the shelter of gurus and acharya who can give you right path.
Yeah. So in the scriptures, I haven't seen anything where a person has become very advanced and now he wants to test. Let me see if I'm sense controlled. So
in fact, we have seen the opposite, Ganapati Govind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because even somebody as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, avoids the association of women. Not that he has to, not that he has any, any problem of self-control, but just to show others, besides
Yeah, Mataji, I think I lost you for a second. Can you repeat the last sentence that you said?
I said Maya is a strong energy of the Lord, and we should not tempt Maya.
Exactly, yeah. So we should not tempt Maya, but we should not try to challenge Maya. Because for devotees, just preaching itself is like a challenge to Maya. We are kind of challenging Maya. That itself is a big challenge to Maya. Now, and further, if we go and try to challenge it further by saying that, let me test if I can resist Maya, that would be like suicidal.
Yeah, I think it's probably offensive too.
Yeah.
I was thinking in the same lines of Gita Mala Mataji. Actually, I'm thinking more on the much more negative side, because you just ask, and if you're married, ask your wife or husband, and they'll tell you all your problems.
Yeah, you'll have a 18 canto Bhagavatam about your negative qualities. So.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji.
Right, we have 2 more minutes. I don't think we can start another verse, but if anyone has any last comments or questions or corrections, please feel free to add.
About the Maya, even Prabhupada says many times, right? We should be afraid of Maya always. That's where, we should not take it easy.
Very good point. He said, actually, we are not sufficiently afraid of Maya, is what he said, the exact statement he made.
Yeah. All right. I think we are good for today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhyobhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Tulsi.
Hare Krishna, Tulsi.